Hey everyone, this is Steve Weintraub with Collider, and I am absolutely thrilled to be with this gentleman. I am a huge fan of your work. And my audience knows, please, you need no introduction. I want to thank you so much for coming in today, and for all the years that you've been working in cinema and all the documentaries and all the films. I really want to say thank you. Um, I know that you are one of the things that I'm fascinated by is you have so many different interests and you have pursued so many different aspects of the film business and the different projects that you've made. What was it about this project that said, I need to make this? I want to explore the brain.
Well, there's a couple of things going on at the same time, because within a few weeks now, I'm releasing 2 new films and 2 new books. So I'm also writing, and it translates more and more that probably my writing, my poetry, and my prose will live longer than my films. I keep saying that since decades. But to this one, Theatre of Thought, about what is going on in our brains. We know very little, but now it's expanding. Knowledge and science is expanding rapidly, and it's a period that is almost comparable to discovery of the functioning of DNA, which had massive, massive changes in the entire world for everyone. What is coming at us is finds an audience, finds the world unprepared. So massive, incredible advances. And of course, it's a mystery. And I've always made films where there's a sense of awe, curiosity and awe. And when you see somebody reading the beginning of my next film without me even using a camera, just with a chip implanted, you could tell what my next film might be. It's not that far, but it's getting close. Or blind who are seeing again, rudimentary, but it will be much, much better. People in wheelchairs walking again, because you can bridge damage of the spinal cord with fiber optics and implant chips in the brain, telepathy. And of course, we have to be aware that there are dangers. What if you can read my thoughts pretty precisely? What happens if this ends up in the hands of a rogue secret service somewhere?
Well, that's one of the things that I found fascinating about your movie is that you explore what people are working on, but you do come back to the fact that technology 20 or 40 years from right now will be so different, and what we will have learned about the brain, the ethical implications of this technology. And that's one of the things your film touches on.
Yeah, but it's not only negative definitions. Thou must not, thou shalt not read my mind unless I consent.
Yeah, the privacy aspect.
Yes, and the autonomy of our thoughts. You see, we have gotten accustomed to the idea that there's freedom of speech, a human right. But now there should be freedom of thought that should be protected. But at the same time, let's assume you had a massive stroke, you are paralyzed, you cannot even answer with blinking with your eyes. You have the right, even though you cannot tell about this right, that we implant you with a chip which gives answers to questions. Are you well? Are you thirsty? Are you in pain? And we could read, and even language can be read very, very fast and very well nowadays with chip implants. And some of the implants are as tinier than dust mite, tinier than anything you can imagine. One of these little chips, or 100,000 of these dust particles would fit into 1 grain of sugar. And you can put them in the bloodstream and somehow direct them to your cortex somewhere. So, of course, there are phenomenal possibilities, glorious possibilities. But, of course, I do not want to be implanted against my against my knowledge and against my will.
One of the things that you have an advantage of because of who you are is you were allowed to go into this IBM quantum computer room. You are able to talk to these world renowned, Nobel Prize winning type people. Who was someone that you were able to talk to that you were really surprised you got access to? Or at this point, did nothing surprise you?
No, it was basically not me, but my main scientific advisor, world-class scientist Rafael Yuste, who has done breakthrough discoveries, and he's studying tiny creatures, hydras that have only, it's water creatures that have tentacles and a little stem. They're a few millimeters, and you find them in ponds outside of Toronto. You might find them as a nuisance in your own aquarium. And they have something 300, 400 neurons, and they can do amazing things. They can even somersault and move on because they have only one stem as a foot. And the scientist who has 80 billion neurons cannot somersault. So, but through him, I had access to the crème de la crème of researchers. But sometimes I would, for example, a Nobel Prize winner who has worked or has gotten the Nobel Prize for describing and discovering the functioning of the sense of smell and all these complicated structures, memory and smell and whatever. And I talk with him about talking parrots, speaking parrots, and about what makes a good marriage, because he's with his wife, who is an equally wonderful and outstanding scientist. And we speak about marriage and talking parrots.
I'm so curious. How does it work with you and the creation of one of your films like this? Is it one of these things where you decide one day, I'm interested in this, I'm going to go start filming? Or is it more thinking about it 6 months in advance?
No. It's whatever I have done in my life, feature films included, came with an incredible vehemence at me. There was something dormant. Yes, I was always fascinated about the mysteries of what is going on in our brain. How do we change our memories? How they're unreliable. We shape our own memories. Much of what we are doing is performative. We live in certain fictions. When you're a best man in a wedding, your behavior and your role and your performance is different if then, let's say, you're serving in the army, or you speak to your own children. You speak with a different voice. You speak as in the role of a father. So there's a lot of mysterious things that are so evident and going on. And yet there are crazy other things where we are talking ourselves into something that never happened. And we maybe in part of us lives in illusions.
Oh, I was going to say that one of the things that your film talks about and made me really think about, and it's been talked about in certain movies, is the fact that at some point in the not so distant future, society will be able to implant thoughts in your head, or will maybe possibly have access to this. And then what makes you you? Who, you know what I mean?
Yes, sure. We know what's coming, and we better look out and understand what is coming. And that's part of why I made this film.
You have made so many projects and you've done so much work. When people meet you, I'm so curious, is there one or two things that people always want to talk to you about? Or is it so wide because of your diverse resume?
No, I think it's, diverse, but there's very, very clear common denominators. You can immediately tell this is a film by me, even if you haven't seen the credits. 60 seconds into it, you would know it must be from me. Because I think there is a common world, there's a world view, there's a sense of awe, there's a sense of excitement, there's a deeper vision in it. So many things that all coalesce and all come together, and all of a sudden you have a film, and they normally come out of nowhere. And this film didn't come out of nowhere, because in my peripheral thinking, so I always kept wondering what the hell is going on in my own head and in your head and in the head of everyone else. And I met Rafael Yuste, the scientist, and all of a sudden there was a movie. And within very short time, I started shooting. No pre-production, no looking out for finances. I started financing it out of my own pocket. I wanted to go right into it, and it was right at the end of COVID restrictions. And I wanted to start right away because next lockdown was around the corner. Get it in the can fast.
Which of your projects do you think changed the most in the editing room in ways that you weren't expecting going in?
Well, all films take their own lives in the editing, let's face it, because you have to allow footage and what you have collected to show its own life. You see, you are not putting it into a corset, into fetters of prefabricated ideas. You will end up with a stillborn baby. So I always allow the footage, come to life, and all of a sudden certain things are unexpectedly beautiful and unexpectedly powerful. And so I follow the flow of footage. I never function like a robot.
I don't know if this applies because sometimes you finance your own things.
Not always, but
Exactly.
in this case,
yes.
And there were some people. There was, for example, the Alfred Sloan Foundation came on board. They heard about it and came on board and supported the project. So I was not completely alone. Let's face it. It immediately attracted attention.
I'm curious, if you could get the financing to make anything you want, what would you make and why?
Well, I have my next film lined up. The moment it's a feature film, the moment the finances are there, I start shooting. No, pre-production, casting, and certain things. I have another feature film project lined up behind it. Behind that, another feature film, but I haven't written the screenplay yet. So, but I can do it fast if there's something moving, some money, little avalanche of money kicked loose, I'll be right there and start shooting.
May I ask you what the next feature film script that you're trying to make?
Well, one is takes place at the end of the Civil War in Sierra Leone, West Africa. One is about two twin sisters. One is about a hacker. One is about, let's not go into all this. Whichever comes first, comes first.
Sure. I was very surprised when you appeared on the Mandalorian. And I'm just curious, which of your friends or family were the most surprised or excited to see you doing something with Star Wars?
Well, everybody was surprised. But the real surprise was me playing the real bad guy in Jack Reacher, because I'm so frightening and I have no fingers left. I'm blind on one eye. I do not open fire. I can't shoot a gun. I only have my quiet voice. And I had to be really frightening. And what happened, my wife, friends of my wife in Paris, saw the film, gave her a frantic call. Are you married to that man? We can give you shelter. We have a guest room. We are only one overnight flight away. So I knew I must have been good. I must have scared them. But otherwise, of course, it's a performance. Otherwise, my wife, if you had her next to me, would testify credibly that I'm a fluffy husband.
One of the things, though, is, and as someone interested in technology and filmmaking, I know that one of the things that's so amazing about what they're doing with that volume technology, and I'm curious if you've seen that, if with your experiences with it, is it something that you want to use in your movies and what your takeaway is for that kind of technology.
Basically, I do not need much technology. I can do films with a very simple primitive camera and sound recording device. And that's basically it, what I need. I do not need the state-of-the-art, newest digital camera. I keep telling young filmmakers, I want to be a cinematographer. I said, why don't you start out, show me a photo that you made without camera, only with a cardboard box, a shoebox, and a needle, and you put a hole into it, a pinhole camera. You don't even have a lens. You only have photo paper at the back in a black box. Make a photo and show it to me. Then you're on the right path. You see, don't demand, I can be only a good photographer or filmmaker with $150,000 worth camera equipment. You don't need it. You can make a credible feature film for theatrical release with your own cell phone camera nowadays.
I was going to say, Steven Soderbergh shot a feature on his iPhone.
Exactly, and others before him. 9 years before Soderbergh, I've seen a feature film very credibly done and a success in movie theaters. So don't tell me you need this or that kind of camera. The very primitive equipment would do as long as you have a vision, as long as you are a storyteller, as long as you are deep in your heart a real filmmaker.
Before I run out of time with you, which I'm just about out, we have been asking a lot of the people who are coming into our studio a few of the same questions, and I'm going to ask you, and I don't know if you watch TV, but if you do, is there a TV show you would love to guest star on or guest write and direct?
Well, I've been on The Simpsons in guest roles, and I like the anarchy of the humor there. So if they come and invite me again, I would accept it. But otherwise, any of the TV shows...
I stumped you.
Yeah, I do not watch that much TV and I don't see too many films.
What movie do you think you've actually seen the most?
I see films quite a few times because my wife keeps playing them at home. We have a very large plasma screen. Battle of Algiers. She must have seen 60 times.
So you've seen it 60 times?
Well, I start to flee meanwhile, but I've seen it at least 3-4 times. And it's a wonderful film. Or, for example, Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove. She has seen it 70 times, 70 plus times. So, of course, I see a part of it. And, of course, I've seen... films by a Bengal filmmaker, Satyajit Ray, the Apu trilogy, mid-50s, black and white.
Oh, I know the Apu trilogy.
Yes,
by Satyajit Ray.
Yeah, Apu trilogy, and it's a film that will never lose its appeal, its humanity, its beauty. It's just stunning. Stunningly fresh.
Also, the fact that he filmed it so long ago,
yes,
and speaking of what you just said, without having modern technology, he was using probably a Bolex
and 1:133 format and mono sound.
Yes,
and each time you sit there and you are stunned by its beauty and its depth.
I think that will actually be the perfect place to stop. And I do recommend the Apu trilogy for everyone. I just want to say thank you so much again for everything that you have done and will continue to do. And I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.